Hello and welcome or welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how I created this nest with eggs using watercolors. Now I really loved the colorfulness of the eggs and I wanted to incorporate that in the nest today, so I'll explain that to you as we go. You can find all of the supplies down in the description below along with the link to the real-time version of this if you're interested. Make sure to subscribe for more videos like this, and let's just get right into it. So I started with my eggs masked here, and I do have a video showing you how I apply and remove masking fluid, so I'll go ahead and link those down below. Then I just wet the whole entire area, and I'm laying in some of the colors that I'm going to use for the eggs first here. Now I want this layer to be super colorful, and it might look a little weird right now, but trust the process. So for this I'm using a little bit of a teal green, my ultramarine blue, a little bit of the ultramarine blue mixed with quin rose to get a little bit of a purple color, just some quin rose on its own, and then a little bit of new gamboge yellow, and I'm letting these colors all mix together. Then we go ahead and let this completely dry, and now this is when the fun part comes in, where we're going to start to create some of those little sticks and textures in nest. So we're going to take our masking fluid again, and I use a liner brush for this, I believe, and I just take a little bit of soap. So you can use like soap detergent that you would wash your dishes with, any soap like that that's really thick and good for grease. I soap up my brush really well. I rinse it just a little bit. You don't want to get rid of all the soap, just a little bit, and then you're going to go in with your masking fluid, and I just put it in a separate container here just so it was easy to dip the brush in and out. And we're just going to create little thin lines all around our nest here. Now I'm focusing this round more towards the outside of the nest, like where the edge of the nest would be, because that's where I want the highlights to be, as this is our lightest layer. Then when it's dry completely, we want to start thinking about muddying up our colors now. So this is where I start adding a little bit of burnt sienna to my warmer colors and a little bit of sepia to my darker colors. Now I still want to think about lights and darks, so I'm using that burnt sienna mixture in more of the light areas and the sepia mixture in more of the dark areas, and I just want to start toning down the nest at this point. Then again we go back in with another layer of masking fluid, and every time we do this we go back and forth between darkening it up and adding masking fluid. The masking fluid, it's going to create the illusion of the sticks resting on top of each other. So just trust the process, and I'm going to speed the rest of this part up just a little bit, so because it's just sort of like a rinse and repeat type thing. But every time I go back in, I want to add a little bit darker paint here, and now you can see some of those masking fluid lines starting to show through. And so we'll darken up, and I'm trying to keep the darkest darks down by the egg. That's the very bottom of the nest. And then I still try to keep a little bit of the light area towards the edge of the nest. And repeat this layer until you get the darkness that you want. Then let it dry completely. You don't want to remove this masking fluid without your watercolor being completely dry, because it will just pick up any of that watercolor and transfer it all over. So make sure that it is super dry, and then just go ahead and remove all the masking. Again, I'll link those videos down below for the masking fluid. Now, once all of the masking fluid is removed, you can just see how colorful this nest is, and you can see all of those lines really well that we've been creating. Now, this looks a little bit too colorful and too light, so I'm going to go back in with my burnt sienna mixture and my sepia mixture, and we're going to tone down the nest. And all this is we're going to glaze some of the dark color over the darker areas. So you can see I'm going in with that sepia around the eggs, and then I'm going to go in with the burnt sienna mixture and glaze some of the lighter sticks just to tone it down. But I don't want to get rid of all of the color that I've got in the highlights of this nest, because I really like that. You can do as little or a lot if you want to. It's just whatever you prefer. And then the very end, I go around with a little bit of that sepia mixture and just create a few stray sticks kind of straggling out of the nest. Now I go ahead and mix up those four main colors again. Now I just want to go in and get some of these colorful eggs in. And I'm doing this wet on wet right now, so I go in and put a layer of water on the egg. I don't want it to be super watery, just enough so that I have a little bit of time to lay the color in. So here I'm using that ultramarine mixed with the quinacridone rose just to get a little bit of a bluey purple color. Now the trick here is whatever egg is next to it. So like that one at the very top, there's a pink egg next to it. I'm going to put a hint of that pink in with the purple just so it shows that that is kind of next to it, it's reflecting onto it, and I'm going to do that throughout all of these eggs. So for some of these pink eggs here, I'm adding a little bit of that purple or a little bit of ultramarine into it, and that's already going to help give a little bit of shadow and a little bit of shape to these eggs, but I want this to be pretty colorful. So you can see I'm using all the same colors that we used on that first layer in the nest. And now it's looking a little bit more cohesive because we've got some of these bright colors in the eggs where we can see some of those bright colors in the nest. And I tried to keep the bright colors in the nest sort of close to where the eggs were themselves. So my yellows are closer to my yellow eggs, the pinks were closer to the pink eggs, and so on and so forth. But you could use whatever colors you want for this, or you could keep your nest neutral, just using the same techniques for this. Now, once the eggs are completely dry, I take a little bit of sepia mixed with some burnt sienna, and I'm going to go around some of the eggs that are closer to the nest, so more of the outside edges of them. And I'll put a little bit of this in, but I'm going to use wet on dry here, so it's more of like a glazing technique, just to add a little bit of brownness to some of these eggs, especially where it's more in the shadowed areas and to the eggs that are closer to the bottom. Now you could do more or less of this. I want it to keep my eggs a little bit more colorful, so I just do a little bit of this, but it just adds a little bit of something to it. Now for the last little finishing detail here is we're going to add the spots onto the eggs, and I just take that sepia burnt sienna mixture and I mix it right into whatever color I used. For example, for the yellow eggs, I mix that right into the new gamboge, and I'm taking my size 2 brush here and I'm just creating little dots. So I push down on my brush a little bit more to create some thicker dots, and then I just do tiny little dabs on it to create those little tiny round dots. And I do this with all of the colors, and that's sort of incorporating a little bit of the color that's in the egg in with it too, because if we just put brown spots on top of this, I think it would look a little bit too stark. So I like incorporating some of the colors I've already used in with my browns just to darken them up a little bit more, and I really love how this came out. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, it really does help me out. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.